We'll start with the breaking stuff. Wilko, what's going on?
We've said, haven't we, Patrick, in these conversations for many days now, just because the whole of the media is reporting Wilko deal collapses, it doesn't mean that sites won't be bought. There are 450 Wilko stores across the country, 12,000 employees, and many of those stores are in good locations and other discounters will want them. We know that BMN Discounter have taken 50 of the stores or so. Unfortunately, David Putnam, who is the owner of HMV, he was going to take 200 stores. That fell by the wayside. That they don't underestimate the chances that some of that deal could come back. And now, again, as we've discussed, Pepco, which owns Poundland, have decided to buy 71 or so stores. Look, this is bad news for Wilko in the round. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs, but some of their real estate is valuable and some of the businesses are valuable and they will be picked up.
And just quickly, so I do want to spend a bit of time on the pensions, but we don't know yet whether or not, let's say a Wilko becomes a Poundland, do the staff just start working for Poundland? We don't know.
We don't know individual staff, but if Poundland are buying a Wilko store, they're buying that store because that particular store, which they've sussed out, is clearly viable. So they're likely to rebrand it. It may be that the Wilko brand itself is separately sold off. There's the various online retailers that are looking for the Wilko brand. So let's see what happens. Not all is not entirely lost. This is what happens when you have administration negotiations and everyone's fighting over the assets, trying to pay as little as possible for as much as they can get.
Absolutely, yeah, no, 100%. So watch this space when it comes to Wilko. But I think, unless you happen to work at Wilko, I would argue maybe the bigger issue for the country is about pensions, and that's going to affect us all one day. It's affecting a lot of people now, an increasing number of us with an ageing population, and there seems to be a bit of a hoo-ha going on, yet again, about the triple lock. It got me thinking, right, how good do pensioners really have it?
Well, let's have a look at why are we talking about pensions today. It's because of the wage numbers that came out. So bear with me. There's a little bit of complexity here, but we'll get through that and then we can go to the bigger discussion. Now, we learnt this morning from the Office for National Statistics, Patrick, that average earnings across the UK between May and July were 7.8% higher, excluding bonuses, than May to July 2022. And because inflation in July was 6.8%, that means inflation is lower than the rate at which wages are rising, prices are going up less fast than wages. That means real wages are going up. Actual purchasing power is going up. Now, that pay number you got there, 7.8%, it's 8.5% if you include bonuses. And the Treasury tends to benchmark pensions to either earnings, which in this case are 8.5% with bonuses, or the rate of inflation in September, or 2.5%, whichever is the greater.
OK.
Now, 8.5% is the bigger of all those three numbers. And so if they follow precedent, that means next April, based on these latest wage numbers in the run to September, pensioners will get an extra 8.5%. And how much is that? £692 a year, which makes the basic state pension £8,814.
And that's not massive, is it? So
by international standards, that is not big for a developed country.
So when people say, I'm a young person who can't afford to get on the property ladder, my wage hasn't gone up by whatever it is, etc., why should this person who's retired have an 8.5% increase on the state pension? It's worth noting that that takes them only to something like £8,800 a year, which I would challenge most people to live on. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, many pensioners will have other benefits. They may have other pensions if they're lucky. But look, this is the clash of generations. We live in a country, we live in a sort of Western world where the baby boomers, if you like, people that were born from the late 40s to the kind of late 50s, early 60s after the Second World War, they have got a much higher rate of property ownership. They have got much better prevention provision. But workplace pensions, all these kind of things that people your age, Patrick, and frankly my age can only dream of, though my generation has had a bit more luck on the property ladder than your generation. Yeah. So this is a big issue. And it's not just the Tories who's saying they might not observe the triple lock. Angela Rayner, no less, you know, the deputy Labour leader, the sort of supremo of the Labour left, she was at a TUC conference, a trade union conference earlier today, and even she wouldn't confirm that Labour will maintain the triple lock. Increasing pensions by as much as I just suggested there, 8.9%, if that's what they actually, 8.5%, if that's what they actually go with, that's about 10 billion quid. How much is 10 billion quid? That's 2p on the basic rate of income tax. That's a lot of moolah. And people have been emailing to me today saying, oh, but why are young people worried? You know, pensioners have been emailing me. I paid tax all my life.
Well, yeah.
I paid in for my pension, so the young people aren't paying for it. Now, I'm afraid that misunderstands, with all respect to those elderly people, how the British government actually manages or fails to manage pension provision. There is no pension pot for the basic state pension. It's paid for out of general taxation today. Right. So effectively, young people today are paying the pensions of old people today. That's just how it works.
So I suppose it becomes a little bit more of a moral question, doesn't it, really? Which is that, because for me, it's that, let's say, you know, everything went belly up for me in a big way, which is not beyond the realms of possibility. I would have potentially another 35 years of working age to make that up.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody in their 70s
that's right.
doesn't have that.
That's right.
And that's why I come down on the side of let's just keep the triple lock and look after the pensioners.
Yeah, look, no one's pension is going to be, no one's basic state pension is going to be reduced, right? But what we're saying, and the triple lock's only a relatively recent thing, it came in during the coalition era, sort of 2010 to 2015, it does get pretty chunky because pensioners had a 10% increase in their pension last year because inflation was so high. It was the inflation one rather than average earnings or 2.5% that was higher. 10%, then 8.5%. I mean, no one who's working, or unless you're some kind of finance tycoon or a television presenter for, I don't know many of those, do you? No one's going to be getting wage rises that are more than 10% and 8.5%. Yeah. So in that sense, a lot of younger people would say it's unfair. And here's one other thing, Patrick. The basic state pension is paid to everybody. It's called universal, and that's what William Beveridge wanted in his report after the Second World War that created the welfare state. But a lot of people who are very wealthy, they're getting the basic state pension. They're using it for their wine fund.
Yeah, that's
they're using it for their skiing fund. Yeah. So shouldn't it be more means-tested? But then when you start means-testing things, it's really difficult because most people fall just one or other side of the means test, and it causes a lot of business. Nothing about this is easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's a good conversation to be having.